So let's begin with Tom and Bruce. Bruce, why don't you ask the first question?
Welcome, Thomas Cook. Thank you for being here with us.
Good. Hello, Bruce.
You're running for the Maui County Council, the Kihei seat, with your opponent being Kelly King. So welcome to the race.
My first rodeo.
Your first rodeo. Well, tell me, for your first rodeo, what do you feel are your qualifications that make you viable to run for this seat and run our county of Maui?
Cool. Thanks for the question. I recently turned 65. I've lived here for 50 years. Moved here when I was a teenager. Homesteaded on a piece of land in Kapakalua and lived in a shed, built a small house. When I moved here, it was at the end of the Arab oil embargo. And I was very Mother Earth news, totally back to the land. We lived off the grid. In fact, so anyway, lived off the grid for several years, done light wind generator, rain catchment, my Holstein milk cow that I had for 3 years named Leche, rabbits, chickens. We had accomplished a very high level of self-sufficiency on the 4 acres that I purchased. My two oldest children, Kamale and Alana, it dawned on me after they were like about 6 or 8 years old that I was, although we were making our own food, water, didn't have any utility bills, etc., I felt like I was a lifeboat tied to the Titanic. And that although we were relatively self-sufficient, I was aware of the fact that as my children were growing older, that I couldn't grow health insurance, I couldn't grow fuel. I basically, no man's an island. I was part of the community. My children are like 5th generation. My grandchildren are 5th generation Maui. I'm first. I'm a transplant. So anyway, I got a job as a carpenter apprentice and did a lot of owner builder kind of work up country. People saw I was talented. I got my license in 1989. I describe myself basically as a carpenter by trade, a contractor by profession, and a construction worker at heart. I consider myself more of a tradesman than a businessman. And the fact that I'm 65 and I'm not wealthy, it kind of proves that is true. So anyway, I have a very diverse background. I'm really excited about being able to introduce myself, because I think that a lot of people have a tendency to prejudge. The fact that I was the president of the Contractors Association, the fact that I was chair of construction industry of Maui. I was also on the advisory board for the Salvation Army. So anyway, that's sort of what I feel I have to offer is a lot of experience in building. We did 21 homes in Waiahuli, $179,000 a piece for 3-bedroom, 2-bath. Some of the most satisfying work that we did for Hawaiian homelands. I've done 12 solar, never touched a solar panel, but I did all the concrete site work. I've also participated in the public over the last few years. I was on the General Plan Advisory Committee. I have a deep commitment to Maui. This is my home. I don't go anywhere else for vacation. And I just feel that my platform basically is striving to lower the costs of living for local working families. And that's a pretty big tent, but housing is a huge part of that. Developing our water resources sustainably is a part of that. Managing our wastewater resources is a big part of that. So, I'm wide open to questions. That's a brief introduction. It's awkward to talk about myself, but I mean, that's part of this new endeavor that I'm doing is I have to make this introduction. Yes. So go for it. Ask me questions and you get to know me more, I hope.
What organizations have you worked for in what capacity?
I was basically on the General Plan Advisory Committee for the county. I've been part of the Affordable Housing Task Force back in the day when we were meeting several years ago. As far as I was president of Maui Contractors Association for 3 years, Salvation Army Advisory Board, the construction industry of Maui, which I don't know if you're familiar with, but basically it's the reincarnation of Maui Contractors Association. And just sort of clarify, people hear like Contractors Association and construction industry of Maui. It really is a civic group. We do a lot of education, scholarships, mentoring teenagers. My educational background is basically a GED. I dropped out of school in middle school, and I basically traveled. I worked, started as a laborer, worked my way up as a carpenter. I am an avid believer that the trades are the pathway for a lot of people to a quality, meaningful life. And if you learn how to turn a screw, and it means you don't have to do it for money, you can always just help a friend. Okay.
Great. And with that, I'm going to pass it to the next person.
Aloha, Tom. Hey, Daniel here.
Hey, Daniel.
Hey, thanks again for joining us, Tom. Okay, I'm going to start off with this question. As a public representative, it is a duty to face the truth and to act righteously. These islands reflect the lowest voter turnout in the United States. On May 15th, 2019, Dr. David Kianusai gave a presentation to the Maui County Council, evidencing the illegal overthrow of Queen Liliuokalani in 1893 and showing clear violation of domestic and international law with the ongoing illegal United States military occupation of the Kingdom of the Hawaiian Islands. As a candidate for public representation, how do you rectify handling the truth of Dr. Sai's presentation, as well as the works of Ko Hawaii Pai'aina Office in Hilo, Keamoku Kapu, Henry Noah, Amelia Gora, Bumpikana Hele, Leon Su, Dr. Josias, Madame Ruth Bolame, etc.? How do you rectify the compliance of the law and restoration of occupied lands?
That is way beyond me to basically I have, that's a huge problem. And as a county council member, I feel that people who know me know that I'm very empathetic, and I'll listen, but I do not have the answers for that. I have a lot of Hawaiian friends, live in Kakaloloa, various areas that we work together, live together, go to the beach together. I'm familiar with the issues, but I don't have the answers, and I'm not going to make a big statement or suck up to anybody that I'm going to be part of the answer. I can say that I will do my best not to be part of the problem.
Okay. And have you, did you observe the presentation by Dr. David Kianusai when he did that in the county council? Did you get a chance to watch that?
Not.
Okay. Okay, and I'm going to pass on to the next questioner, and then I'll come back with some more. Mahalo.
Aloha, Tom. How are you?
Fine, Sylvia. I'm trying to look at the camera and not look at who's talking to me, so just bear with me.
Good reminder. I'll try that too. So, wow, you covered a lot there. Your interest in making the cost of living more affordable to people who live here. You mentioned water, wastewater management, and housing. Those are three huge areas. How can you give us any details about policies that you might pursue related to those things?
Yes, I'll address housing first. And I don't know how many of you have applied for building permits before and have run the gauntlet. My assessment of basically the county right now, it's almost like an infected tonsils. It's like and when I had my tonsils on, I asked the doctor, well, what does that mean? He goes like, well, they kind of have gone over the other side and they're working against you instead of working for you. And I am supportive of the special management area. I understand the flood permit necessity for FEMA, the health and safety and building codes. I was part of the General Plan Advisory Committee. I understand and embrace the concept of the urban growth boundaries, the community having input into, into their community and being heard. I don't mean to be disrespectful. I don't like to talk poorly about anybody. So I'm going to talk about positions. The planning department, to me, is extremely dysfunctional. It's grown way out of proportion. And although it's an administrative role to manage the planning department, DSA, Department of Water Supply, wastewater, the county council is involved in the funding of those agencies and departments. I would like to collaborate first off with all of the council members. It's like, working together is the way that you get things done, and not being hard-headed and single-minded. So listening, identifying what other people's values are, finding common ground, and collaborating. Similarly with the administration, I've witnessed years, and I don't understand it, because some of the mayors previously were, in fact, 3 of the last mayors were previously council members. And for they become a mayor, and all of a sudden the council and the mayor do nothing but beef and scrap, and it's really dysfunctional. It doesn't help anybody. My skill sets over my lifetime have been problem solving and team building. That's really how I kind of worked my way up in the industry. And, whether it's union and non-union, locals, new haulies from the mainland who are tradesmen, people who were very familiar with living here and people are not. And basically, I've been able to be sort of a common denominator and, peacemaker to some extent. So one thing is streamlining the building permit process. And when I say that, some people go, oh, you want to rubber stamp everything and just build. I will tell you something that nobody knows about me. I've been here for 50 years. I bought one piece of property. I sold it to my son. I planted trees from Waimea that were 10 cents a piece like this. Now they're Norfolk pine trees that are armed. My arms won't go around. Same piece of property. Raised both my kids on it, sold it to my son, his teenage grandson. It'll never leave the family. That's one way that I sort of advocate affordability, is to encourage people not to sell their land. I feel I'm not like, I have real friends who are realtors, and I'm not going to stigmatize anybody. And I don't think that we can afford as a community to take just one path. But I think real estate speculation in Hawaii has been a cancer, and it's supply and demand doesn't work here. It never has. It never will. And what we need to do is collaboratively as a community come up with an alternate parallel path. I don't think that we can shut down the market economy. That's where a lot of the tax base is generated from. But the community, Nahaleo Maui, community land trust, leasehold property that people, non-speculative shared equity homes. And I'm a big advocate of that. It's basically, you get all your money back. It's like a forced savings account. Most of the people I know don't build a house thinking they're going to flip it in 5 to 7 years and move on up. It's like, I just want a house. I want the security. I want my kids to have the security. I want my grandkids to have the security. So getting a home is kind of like, it's not only the starting point, but it's probably like the ending point. Maybe, and that's why I believe in having larger lots than these tiny little 0 lot lines. We need a certain amount of density in town and stuff, but I think it's wrong for the local kids and grandkids of this generation and the next generation to be squeezed into townhouses. There's no room for surfboards. There's no room for bicycles. It's not appropriate for families. And so that's sort of where I'm coming from. I really want, I want to build 20,000 homes, but I want to build it for locals. I want it to be non-speculative. I don't want to be flipping homes. I want people to buy them. The phrase affordable in perpetuity, I've argued with that in the past with people because it sounds kind of toxic. My time's up, right? So anyway, I hope that gives you some insights into who I am. I'm not a realtor. I don't believe in selling property and, flipping it. It's just, I'm a builder.
Thank you.
Hi, Tom. Paul here, and I just have a couple of questions, a little bit of a continuation of what Sylvia was asking. Really, the first one is about in a very important resource that we have that really determines where any type of development will be, and that's our water, the lifeblood of the island. Here's my question. Would you support the county asserting eminent domain over the EMI system in order to administrate the public trust water resource for the food security necessary for our community?
No, and I'll tell you why. I think the county's incompetent and capable of managing it. I think that the EMI system, which is truly a marvel. I mean, if you think of the people who actually worked in there and dug those tunnels and did that work. My kid's grandpa's brother worked in the tunnels, and he came up, he told me stories. It was like 25 years ago. He was 86 years old, and he sat on the front porch in Kapalua and told us about 6 days they'd pack stuff in, they'd work for 4 days, they'd pack stuff out. They literally took machinery apart and rebuilt it in the mountain. EMI is quite remarkable. I'm glad they're putting the water back in the streams. I think that we are in the process of equalizing and correcting a lot of history. I have a saying, and I wish I could know who could quote it because I didn't dream this up. Life's and society's really big challenges are outgrown. They're not solved. And so looking at EMI and having been a contractor and having to deal with OSHA and all of the HIOSH, EMI would be extremely hard pressed for a county worker to work in and following the health and safety guidelines. I've got friends who told me that basically they hold a guy by the ankles and lower him down in the tunnel to clean stuff. And I don't think you could do that if you were a county worker.
So I guess the question I have is not just limited then to having that be administered by the county itself, but maybe some other options other than the present system that we have right now. I mean, we're looking at between A and B and the potential transfer over to Maui Pono, a Canadian-owned organization. Is this something that you feel as community that we should let then this foreign company oversee and administer the water, its distribution, and where developments happen and what type of crops are grown?
I would say no to that question. And what I would say is what I envision and what I see kind of evolving with the state's participation, the county's participation, the Terrell Farmers Advocacy participation, is that particular control element is being diversified and appropriated. It is a public resource. It's not a private resource. It is a very challenging resource all the way across into the Central Valley. So I think there needs to be someone who is managing it and being responsible of it. So I think it's a collaborative effort. Should they just have control? No, by any means. I don't think the county could handle it. I don't think the state could handle it. I'm not that all impressed with the county and state government's managing of resources, to tell you the truth. And so I think that with oversight and collaboration, we can, over this period of time, everybody get what they need and have it last be preserved in perpetuity for everybody for a long time.
Great. Thank you for that. And just along the same line, Tom, when it has to do with utilities, since Maui residents pay the highest electric rates in the nation based on the electric being provided by private corporation, MECO, and Kauai pays the lowest rates in the nation based on the electric being provided by a community cooperative. What are your thoughts about supporting efforts to change the electric distribution system from private to publicly owned and operated cooperative?
I think that empathy for Maui Electric. Just so you know, like, I don't know if you guys remember the old fairgrounds when it used to be in Kahului, which was the racetrack before my time. But basically, in the last year of the fairgrounds, my neighbor and partner at the time, Jamie Woodburn, we put up a Intertech wind generator on top of a telephone pole with Maui Electric. And basically, it's one of the first ones that backfed power into the system with 2 meters. We put 4 of them up in Haiku. The generators were a piece of crap. They had a disc brake that would fail. I had to go early in windstorms. I was a lot younger then, with a 2x4 and a rope and lasso them to get them to stop. Telling the owner, stop it so it doesn't throw a blade and hurt anybody, but if it breaks, it's it. So I'm just saying, Maui Electric in the 80s was receptive energy and working with people. So I think to some extent, they've been stigmatized to a point. It's like a dinosaur that's dying. I see the electric utility right now. It's like their income stream is going down. Their burden of providing service is constant. The system is relatively old and needs a lot of maintenance and needs capital improvements. So it's not going to keep going the way it is. It's like it's running off a cliff. I think that utility would be something that a co-op and a hui could and would manage. I think it would be a mistake to cut Maui Electric out. I think it's more like a negotiated, recognizing the challenges that they have, letting them know that we want to work with them, asking what solutions they have, what ideas they have, and saying, ultimately, it's going to be a community-based utility. It's an island. Let's just get over it. But but working with them is, I think, prudent.
Great. Thank you for that response, Tom. And Bruce, why don't you go next, and we'll continue our rotation, and then we'll end up with Amanda and Laura.
I can't hear you, Bruce. You're mute.
Bingo.
There you go.
Yes, Thomas. Who's funding your campaign? Who are your main funders?
Friends and family. I have not really been funded by anybody yet. I just got my bank account open, got set up. This is my first campaign. I'm not part of a political organization or a hui to do that. I will be getting donations from friends, family, contractors. And I just want to say, like, Maui has a huge resource base of local homegrown contractors. And people, when I was on the GPAC, I'll just share that, like, with Lucy and Danae, I never could, we didn't get a chance because of the Sunshine Law to like really get together and talk story. After 3 years, she still thought I was a developer. And it's like, no, you don't get it. A contractor is not a developer. A contractor is kind of like a quarterback for a bunch of tradesmen. And my philosophy I believe a contract is a tool and not a weapon. That's the way that I do my business. 35 years, I never had an attorney. A couple times I should have. I was foolish, but I never had to go to court. I basically felt that if you give hyper service and you take responsibility, if you blow it, you're straight up with people. People on Maui, for the most part, are very, very kind and generous, and aloha is very real. And if I screw up and I tell them, hey, I screwed up, I can't pay all the bills, I'm good for it, that goes a long ways. So you don't have to get into the court deal. So anyway, contractors and some developers, tradesmen. I have a very extended family up country. I'm related to a lot of people. One of the things that I'm hoping to do, something that you all about the poor turnout, I am really leaning on a lot of my friends and family who have not participated in this voting, and encouraging them to vote, to register, and to vote, and to participate. And I tell them, I'd like you to vote for me. I don't, you vote for whoever you want to vote, but you should get out and vote. And then the other thing that people aren't aware of that I'm glad you mentioned, Paul, is that they should vote for all 9 county council members. It's not just in your district. You should vote for all 9 boxes should be checked for the person of your preference. And this form is really welcome because it enables people to become more familiar with who people are and what they stand for.
Okay, thank you. And you mentioned flipping homes and where affordable housing should be in perpetuity. And this is a problem where people buy an affordable house, part of a deal, and then a few years later they flip it. And this is, we know, categorically wrong. What are your plans in order to solve this problem? And what is your plan for actually creating affordable housing here on this island?
I'm glad you asked that. People tell me, Cook, you're more than building. I know, but I'm like really good at building. So basically it's shifting away from fee simple to leasehold. That's like what the community land trust is. So you can sell the house, but you're not going to sell it on the open market. You're not playing monopoly. Okay, so that's the first and foremost thing. As I'm talking about parallel paths, you have the market. If you want to do that, you can do that. It's not going to be very subsidized. If you want to do community land trust, we need to work with large landowners. We need to work with the government. We need to work with wealthy people because it has to be subsidized. If you're going to be subsidized, it shouldn't be subsidized for 5 years or 10 years or 15 years. It should be basically in perpetuity. The reason I said that earlier about affordable in perpetuity, it's like, and it isn't just a play on words. It's, if it's just affordable in perpetuity without any structure, without any clarification, then a bank or other people are sort of like, whoa. If it's non-speculative shared equity, which is what a community land trust is, you don't own the land, you pay, and it's not like Hawaiian Homes $1 a year. You pay $50 a month or something, and then you buy your house, and it's like, then when you want to sell it, you get your money back with a little upkick. So it's almost like a forced savings account. If for whatever reason you have to move, you choose to move, you're free to move, but whoever gets that house, it's not going to be market, never will be. I'm a firm believer that part of the solution to our housing issue is lots. When I was a lot younger and like Pukalani Terrace was being built, they just did developable lots. And then I built several homes in there for family, my cousins, my brother-in-law. And it was sort of like, I can build a house for 200 grand. I can build a really nice 250. Now it depends. If you want a tile roof and you want this whole Wailea special, I'll build it for you for $1,000 a square foot. But it's not just all more. It's like, it's bigger and it's more stuff. So we can build affordable homes. What we need is buildable land. We need it entitlement. And I propose that that's what we request from developers instead of this complicated, funky percentage deal. And bear with me, it bugs me that we have totally turned over housing to the developers, quote, the big developers. And they're going to give 20%, 25%, 30%. We're arguing over percentages and how much. It's just like, you know what? Just let them build that. Ding them full freight for the park assessment, the Department of Education assessment, the highways assessment, everything else. If they can afford to build it, is buildable lots. And you can, maybe somebody gets together and builds 30, a medium developer, because there is economics of scale. And so if you build 30 homes, guy in a hui in one area, he's going to get a better price. I'm also an advocate of using more concrete, more masonry, not cutting down forest and shipping it across the ocean so that we can put 20% of it in the landfill.
Thank you. And with that, I'm going to pass it on to the next.
Okay, Tom.
Daniel, is that you?
Yep. Okay, so I'm curious to continue this inquiry on the affordable housing, because as far as I'm aware, the law recently was that, well, at first it went from 50% of the development had to be affordable housing, and then it got cut down to 25% of the developing lot had to be affordable housing, with reason that cost of materials was too expensive. And so when you're talking about building 20,000 homes for locals, what does that look like in these terms? Would it be having large land plots, with only 25% of those being affordable, or what sort of plan would you are you looking at, especially with this perhaps other way? Would that be the non-speculative shared equity, the land trusts, or could you elaborate on that?
I want them all affordable. Okay. It's like when people talk about traffic, you build 20,000 homes. I want 20,000 homes that people are already here, or their families coming back from the school and they're working there. I want the teachers to come home. I want the nurses to come home. I want the people engineers, architects, plumbers, electricians, and left to have the opportunity to come home and to be able to afford to live here. So I am not an advocate of this percentage-based. I think it's just functional. I've been in so many different forums and talked about it. And the challenge with the 25%, you weren't getting any homes. That model is basically, if 50% of it is affordable and 50% of it is market, 50% of the people are supporting or subsidizing the other 50%. And that's just not good, solid community-based mentality. I mean, the 50% subsidizing the other 50%. It's like, I think that the government needs to step up. The government needs to be, I think we need to have more confidence in ourselves. I mean, what's happened in the last 50 years? I mean, I used to go to McKenna. You went to the cattle guard, Kiawi Kapu, and that's where you went into McKenna. There wasn't Wailea. I mean, it's like the old Ulapalakua Road. It's like, this place is just, it's gone nuts in 50 years. So if we look forward, there's no reason to think that it's not going to hopefully we won't allow this to continue. It can't, right? Because we're just like burning our resources. But I believe that we have, okay, and this might turn people off, but this is it. I believe that we have a unique opportunity. When I see all like the private jets at the airport, I look at that as a bad thing. Those people are not taking away affordable homes. I would kind of like to, you can't build anything like $1 or $2 million. So the middle, top of the market, real speculative deal. It's like if somebody wants to build a $10 million home, a $15 million home, I'd like to expedite it. And I'll tell you why. This might sound weird. Somebody builds a $10 million home, $5 million of it, half of it is wages. Okay. And I mean, I built 5 wages. That's $5 million is going into the community and staying here. Okay. When the person's building and they get a $10 million home, $1 million lot, I mean, they're paying like 60, 70 grand a year property tax. That's like an annuity for the community. And it's like the perfect roommate. Have to rent and they're never here. Like they're not traffic. They're not the problem. Let them stay on a golf course. Let them spend $200-300 for meals. So I think that market, that mega rich people are not the problem. And if they, if we utilize that as a resource, that's the major subsidy that we locals can have, you know, I'd like to see quarter acre lots. I don't want to see small lots. I want to see more rural. I know from being on the GPAC and other stuff, the urban, sprawl, trying to keep it compact, kind of irritates me when they keep wanting to talk about Portland and Seattle as an example. I'm going like, hey, if I want to live Portland and Seattle, I'd be there. I'm here.
Well, so you had mentioned before having the affordable lots, perhaps a bit bigger. Now, like, would these affordable lots be the quarter acre size lots, or are you talking about more like, or more something more roomy, or like, could you, like, what do you mean by that?
I think that 30 seconds. I think quarter acre lots is kind of prudent and reasonable. The farther you get out, then it's like half acre lots. The 2 acre lots in the gentleman estates is just sort of a setup. Okay, next. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but he cut me off.
All right, mahalo.
You're welcome. Thank you for the opportunity.
Sylvia, why don't you go next, and then I'll follow, and then Amanda. You're still on mute. You're still on mute, Sylvia. Okay, while Sylvia is waiting to get her mic unmuted, I will just ask a question then, Tom. And it has to do really with this huge transition that we're facing as community right now. I mean, it's really a blank slate in many ways. We don't know exactly how we're going to recover and how that is going to take place, what that's going to look like. Do you have specific thoughts about our transition from this more tourist-based industry to another form, and what form would that be?
Thanks for the question. I believe that our tourism, okay, I am supportive of tourism. I think that tourism is a clean, viable industry. It was, you know, there again, I've been here long enough, picking pine and working in the cannery was the tourism replaced that. Not only were we becoming less competitive on a global scale with other places being able to do pineapple less expensive, but also it was by design, higher paying jobs, cleaner jobs, more desirable jobs than working in the field. So tourism isn't a mistake, and tourism isn't all bad. It was out of control. God has a sense of humor. We're lining in the cloud. You know, we didn't have to like come down heavy on it. It is not going to be like it was anytime in the near future. I think a lot of people that work in the industry need to go back to work. And I think that hopefully being tourists getting tested before they come will be a little bit of a mitigator, like it used to be when you had to stop on Oahu, get on another plane if you wanted to come to Maui. Like you had to kind of like really want to be here, and you had to kind of work at it. So to answer your question, I think that we need to enable our people, our community, to be creative and industrious. And our government prevents us from being industrious and creative to a great extent. There's just too many rules, too many laws, too many regulations. No can, no can, no can. And I think that that's stifling. And so I would hope, as being on the county council, and I would hope that by being part of the government, that I can bring my philosophy, my mindset, my experience to the table and let them know. It's like, if you want to do something and you want it to be inexpensive, like make up a decision, say yes or no quick. Don't drag it out for 2 years because it's just going to get more expensive. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. If you want to do it, do it. But all of this delay in getting permits and delay in getting approvals is detrimental to the community, and it's costing us money.
Tom, just as a follow-up to that, then, you know, you mentioned that our community, you know, with all that's happening and all the shifts and changes and challenges we have, what would be, again, we're looking at a lot of different options. And if we do have some resources, where would you put those resources in order to make a shift? And also, if you look at the county plan, we look at our amount of people we can have carrying capacity for, 33%, and we were up to about 43% as the time this pandemic hit. So what would you do in order to look at a more balanced approach, perhaps, to our tourism industry also?
Work with the Hawaii Tourism Bureau, work with the hotels. I don't think that it's a minority view that tourism was overheated and too much. I think a lot of people feel that way. So I'd like to see there again, if we could be building more for local people, if we can enable people to work. We need more tradesmen. Okay, so we need farmers, we need tradesmen, we need people in the ag business. So part of the solution to what you're asking, Paul, is what do we do to, where do we point our youth to focus their energies to what they're going to do to stay on the island and work? And what opportunities can we provide for them to be able to do that?
Great, thank you for that. Sean, welcome. And why don't you go on next, and then we'll have Sylvia.
Aloha kako. I do have a question. I would like a question. You answer the question that you wanted to answer, but I'd like for you to answer Paul's question, please.
Sure. Well, could you say it again? I apologize if I didn't understand.
Please go ahead, Paul. Say it again.
Exactly.
Well, we're asking how to deal with the massive overpopulation of tourism that we had, and he talked about what we were going to do with our children. It didn't answer the question. I want to know what we're going to do, because the question is, I guess the meta question here is, what is the quality of life for people that are here locally with the pandemic, and actually taking the time to drill down into what's happening macroeconomically, economically, physically, everything that's going on. Because what I'm hearing so far, quite candidly, is from 10 years ago. I'd like for you to know what you're going to do for this island in the future, and I'd like for you to answer Paul's question now. Thank you.
Okay, well, we need to grow more. We need to spread our wings. Bear with me. I can see Sean. Thank you, Sean. If you look at a picture of Maui from the 50s and you do an overlay now, it's like we don't have many new roads. We have 4-lane roads instead of 2-lane roads. It's like if it feels crowded, it's because we're very congested. Okay. It sounds odd, and it's like not a real popular going like, well, we want to grow. What I want to grow is I want to have room for local people to have houses, and that's going to take room. I don't want to put them in condominiums or in townhouses. Okay. So that growth in itself is part of the economic deal. As far as tourism goes, I don't have the solution, but I have a feeling and a vision. And that's basically that I think a lot of people are going to take this time, this opportunity to reassess how the tourism was and what do we do it. I personally think that our carrying capacity of the island is greater than what it is. We've used water as a regulator over the years. We have water resources, and we can ecologically and intelligently handle wastewater. We can intelligently manage traffic and people, how people move around.
I appreciate it. I was asking for a specific question to be answered. So would you say that the major reason for government is to help with the quality of life of the people that live here?
Oh yeah, I think the primary.
So as far as quality of life goes, could you tell me how increasing tourism, building large mansions, letting all the regulation go so anyone can build whatever they want to, like sand hills or whatever. Could you tell me how that is going to increase the quality of life of the people here on Maui?
No, I didn't say that. I wouldn't agree with that. And I don't think that's the situation at all.
Okay.
I think part of involved in how do we improve the quality of life? If people have trades and ability, whether it be in agriculture, whether it be in building, whether it be in aquaculture, or be in conservation, if our youth have something meaningful and satisfying to focus their energies on, that's increased quality of life on the island. I don't want everybody to simply be working in an ABC store and working in a hotel. That's not me at all. I think that creating opportunities isn't just like government pulling levers. It's a lot of the time it's just like government backing off. I don't want to rubber stamp things. I don't want to build a bunch of sandhill developments. So I said I am an advocate of some of the big homes, and that's because of the tax base. With the rising sea levels and the challenges, ecological, global warming challenges that we're going to face over the next 30 to 50 years, we need to prepare that our tax base is going to become marginalized. It's going to become reduced. We're going to go through a lot of changes like everybody else.
Do you realize that in the area that you're looking at being, the representative from, have you taken a look at the maps to understand how much infrastructure is going to be lost, how much of our tax base is going to be lost, and how many of those multi-million-dollar homes are going to go away?
I'm very aware of that, and I've been part of various planning work groups, like for the Title 19 review for both phases of it. I've seen the maps. I'm aware of the maps, and I concur. I think as far as like.
So what is your answer? We have 1 minute. I'd like for you just to be really laser focused. So what's your answer to take care of that as you're talking about all these great jobs for our children, but we're looking at losing billions of dollars of tax base. Please answer that. Tell me how that's going to be answered.
We spend the next 30 years shifting gears so that we have a tax base to pull from as we're losing that.
Okay, so you feel that we have 30 years to change the tax base?
No, I feel it's kind of like, no pun intended, rising tide. As this occurs, we as a community need to adapt. And part of the adapting is to basically be able to mitigate and for our tax base, mitigate for our for where people are living, how people are making money.
Great.
So,
thank you very much. I'm going to pass it on to the next person. Paul, you want to take it from here? Thank you.
Yep.
Okay.
So, hi, Sylvia, you're next.
Tom, hi. Yeah, thanks for waiting. I moved inside. I was a little blinded by the light there for a second. Well, you cover a lot here, and I'm wondering how it all fits together for you. You had experience living off-grid. We were involved with Mother Earth News. You were self-sufficient on 4 acres. How can you take that to the island level, and how does your awareness of sustainability result in your choices for planning and development? I mean, I can think of a couple things. One, I would wonder what your plans were for the wastewater injection wells and farming subsidies, turning more towards farming. But just in general, how do you make the whole island sustainable?
Well, I'm not going to do it in 2 years, but my philosophy and my goal and my ambition is to get our local government to work more collaboratively, to get the people who are in the government, the bureaucracy, to be more aware of the fact of our challenges and recognizing that they're part of the solution, and for people to stop just like blaming them as being the problem. As far as sustainability goes, a lot of it is enabling people. There's so many local people that own land and they can't use it, whether it's because of the zoning, because of lack of water, for a variety of things. So to me, that's a big part of the quality of life. My family owns the land, and it's like, everybody could have a piece of it or have a house rather, but we can't because it's owned properly, but there isn't the water and the infrastructure. I think that the County of Maui needs to step up and develop our water resources. The Show Me the Water bill some years ago fragmented it. There's been a number of wells drilled, a number of subdivisions done, but they're private wells. So instead of it being a municipal water system, right now it's fragmented. So I think we need to develop our resources, and people look at develop as being like, oh, bad. Develop simply means to be like, it's another word for cultivate. So as far as to answer your question, my intentions are to work with people. We have a lot of talented people in the community, and tapping into them and being receptive to ideas. I really don't like the polarization, us versus them. That's something that I hope I'm a little bit of an odd duck enough that I can kind of come to the table and be like, I truly understand what you're looking for. This is the experiences I have. This is my idea. I don't have all the answers. Okay. I don't have a magic wand. I don't have the answers, but I really feel that I can. I've always been a problem solver. I've been a very effective builder. I'm good working with people. I don't want to be right. I want to be effective. Okay. I would rather be judged, foolish than dishonest. I strive to be objective and not judgmental. So, I mean, that's not just words. I'm just sharing with you my philosophy and how I feel about life and people. I think people will live,
that. Like,
people will live upper.
Everybody wants to get along. Everyone wants to get along. That's the ideal. And why does it so often come down to when you vote, it has to be yes or no? At that moment, how do you compromise? And are you going to vote for the AINA or not is what it comes down to, unfortunately.
Okay, well, that's definition of voting for the AINA or not. If it's basically not building anything, then I would probably vote against the AINA if that's the interpretation of not building anything. I want to build, but I want to build with the land. Every time that I've ever done a project and we've had it blessed, it's always when the kahu would say, you don't own the land, you're the caretaker. Okay, and that's I believe that we are basically the caretakers for the future generations, and that's not just words. So I don't have a real slick answer exactly how to solve all the
I
problems.
guess some of the votes that I'm thinking about are some of the votes that have come up are things like the Maui injection wells case, wanting to settle that, things like that. Have you been following some of those?
I was not supportive of settling the case. I am supportive of doing an alternate method of instead of doing the injection wells. The reason I was not supportive of settling the case was because I felt it was better to have the law of the land instead of Maui being an outliner. As it worked out, the judge ruled exactly how we wanted. It worked out. The fear of having a conservative Supreme Court rule against what we wanted didn't pan out. So the only reason I wanted it to go all the way up the food chain was so that it was more of a uniform law and not something that we had to spend a lot of time and effort figuring out how we were going to make it work.
So do you feel that was worth the $12 million that this administration spent to get this hypothetical, gee whiz, now we're like everybody else aligned? Do you think those funds were spent well?
No, I wish that whole thing had come down different. I don't, I look at wastewater as a tremendous resource. Wastewater is a great resource. It's being wasted. Okay. We as a community, if we're willing to invest to utilize it, then we can. So, I'd have big ponds with, seaweed and limo and compost piles and utilizing the resource for ag and, that's what I like to do.
Great. Thank you, Tom. And Sylvia, did you have any other, next we'll go on to Amanda then.
Yes, go ahead, Amanda.
Hi, Amanda.
Hi, everybody. I'm sorry. I'm Amanda. I'm Tom's campaign manager, and I'm just here observing. I didn't realize that I was going to be called upon, so I'm just here to observe. And thank you for having me.
She's part of my heart and soul.
if that's the case, Amanda, then what would you say are one of the top qualities of Tom?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, for me, the top qualities of Tom is his personality. He definitely gets along with everyone. I like the way he thinks. I think he's balanced. I've worked 25 years at the county council, so I pick my members very well that I choose to support and back up, and I think he's going to be great for our community.
Thank you for that, Amanda. And we are getting close to our hour. And Bruce, is Kelly in the weight room?
Yeah, she's still there.
Bruce?
Maybe we
yeah,
can
so
have Tom
so great.
give some last comments.
So Tom, yep. So if you could, Tom, just finish up by giving our viewers an overview of where they can get more information about you and your campaign, and also your funding, where they could support you, how they can support you for your campaign process.
Thank you for asking that. We're in the process of setting up our website, and you'll be able to, we'll Facebook and be able to connect with us. As far as being able to contribute, it's Friends of Tom Cook, P.O. Box 189, Kihei, Hawaii. And I'm just excited about being part of the forum, and I'm hopeful. I'm not against anybody. That's not my style. I'm hopeful that I can get on the council, be a team builder, and that be very receptive to everybody. It's a representative government. It's not just people who vote for me, not people I'm related to. Everybody has a voice. I'll strive to listen to everybody, learn as much as possible, and strive to be effective. And my idea of being effective is if people feel that things are going in the right direction. Like I said, it's not going to happen overnight. Our problems are outgrown, not solved. But I will perpetually be receptive to people's ideas, opinions, and I'm thankful for this opportunity.